Hello and welcome to the Bedroom Studios podcast, the podcast where we talk about what goes on behind the scenes in a musician's world and bridge the industry gap by bringing their stories, expertise, and advice to early career artists. Subscribe to join us for a fun chat about life as a creative person, tips and tricks for pursuing an artistic career, navigating the music industry, and more. I am your host, Emma, and today I will be interviewing Tyrese Walters. Tyrese Walters is a choral conductor, composer, and singer based in Toronto. He is a graduate of Western University with a Bachelor of Music with honors in voice performance, and is currently studying at the University of Toronto, where he is completing a Master's of Music in Choral Conducting with Dr. Jamie Hillman. As a conductor, he has worked with many university and community choral groups in the GTA. Tyrese is also a dynamic soloist with performed roles ranging from musical theater, opera, and oratorio. Tyrese is passionate about social justice, fashion, theater arts, and exploring new, innovative ways to interact with and perform choral music. I had such an amazing time chatting with Tyrese about choral music, his conducting process, and I hope you enjoy this episode of the Bedroom Studios podcast. Thanks for being on the show. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm also very happy to be here.
So to start the interview, can you introduce yourself to the audience and give a little bit of background on your music and artistic journey?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Tyrese Walters. I am a choral conductor, composer, and choral singer based in Toronto. Currently, I'm studying at University of Toronto, doing my Master's of Music in Choral Conducting, and I'm a graduate of the Bachelor of Music in Voice Performance at Western University. I guess my artistic journey, I grew up singing in musical theater, doing a lot of stage productions in school and in the community, and then that led me to auditioning and attending Cawthron Park Secondary School, which has the regional arts program, or one of two in Mississauga, where I was a voice major. And that's when I realized that I wanted to study music and be a musician. And so I did a lot of choirs growing up as well. So that was a big part of my, artistic journey. And I conducted a couple choirs. I co-conducted our low voice student run ensemble at Cawthron Park called Boys and Bee, which is a lot of fun and was really formative in my experience as a choral singer and conductor. So went through my undergrad in voice performance. Was kind of unsure of where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. Originally, I wanted to be a school teacher, and so I was actually intending to be in the music education program at Western. And then kind of had a lot of confusion, was really unsure what I wanted to do, kind of felt not out of place per se, but just wasn't sure where I felt like I fit in. Had debated just kind of going musical theater performer route, wanted to finish my undergrad in voice performance and then go to an acting school and then just go musical theater. And then also was maybe I won't do music at all. Maybe I'll just go to law school, as if that's easy. And then
it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, that's definitely not the quote. But anyways,
yeah.
But eventually realized that I'd always loved choir. I always loved conducting, and I took conducting and education courses throughout my undergrad, and kind of realized that that's what I wanted to do. And so I applied to a couple of grad programs in Canada for choral conducting, and very gratefully ended up at U of T, where I study with Dr. Jamie Hillman. And I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that U of T and Toronto and just generally what my friends and network has brought for me. So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people at some point have that kind of internal struggle of should I do education or should I do something in performance or composition? Yeah, I feel like it's very common, even for myself that did go the education route. There's so many options, but then each path looks so different, and it can be hard to find what's right. So it's really cool that
Yeah.
you found it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel like there was so much like pressure to like know exactly what you wanted, and not I felt like, oh, if I pick this major, like I have to do this. Like I won't ever teach, or I won't ever perform, or whatever. But so much of my choral practice has educational aspects in it, that like I work with children and youth. And so a lot of that has been so formative in my choral conducting practice. But then also my background in performance has also really influenced my choral conducting practice. So it turns out that all of it was useful, and it doesn't matter what I did because I love what I do regardless. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of mentioned sort of like what drew you to do choral conducting and like being in choirs. And I think that's really cool. I love choirs. I haven't really sang in a lot of choirs, but I don't know, there's just something about it that's really touches the soul.
Yeah.
And yeah, can you tell me about your experience singing in choirs as a kid and how that's different now that you're in front of the choir conducting it?
Yeah, for sure. So basically all of, or most of my experience growing up singing in choirs was through school. I was very lucky to have had very, very, I guess, active music programs from elementary school all the way through to high school. So again, I consider myself very lucky that I got to have such great teachers and such a great community to be a part of. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, was that choir, and I guess music, but specifically choir, was is community. I think singing and performing is so vulnerable.
Hmm.
I think especially singing as well, and to do it with a group of people who maybe feel the same way, may feel different ways about performing, but always working towards like a common goal and finding common, maybe not the exact same, but common understandings of music, of what we're performing or why we perform. That's what makes it so special for me. I remember high school, choir was something that all of my friends, even people who were not voice majors or didn't think of themselves much as singers, would do because we were all doing it together.
Hmm.
And I think that was very special, that it was something that we could do to be social, but also to make great music together, and to just have like a shared experience. So that was a really, really formative part of kind of why I still love doing choir.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I feel like a lot of barriers to people joining choir in school settings is that social aspect. Not saying that it isn't cool to be in a choir, but
Mm.
like it's so vulnerable, and if someone's not comfortable singing or insecure about their voice, it's like it could be hard for them to make that step to actually join something that requires them to sing.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's like this like notion that like you have to be like a perfect singer, you have to have like amazing technique or whatever to be a part of a choir. And I don't think that's true at all. I think one of the best things about choir is being able to gain those skills, and do it with a group of people of varying ability. Yeah, and just to get better at something that you enjoy doing. So yeah.
And the tail end of my undergrad kind of intersected with the beginning of your master's. So I have seen you
Hmm.
conduct before, and something that always stuck with me was um, like the way you're able to convey the emotion of the piece in your gestures. It's so powerful and so beautiful to watch. And I was wondering if you could talk more about like the actual kind of physical conducting process and how you prepare for that and what goes through your mind when you're conducting or when you're preparing to conduct.
Yeah. First of all, thank you. That's so sweet. And that's a huge compliment.
Well, something I remember even now. It's like 2 years later. I still remember.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, that's so sweet. That's such a nice compliment. But yeah, and also great question. I think like for me, like my process is like I always start with like I listen to the music if I'm like going to be preparing it for rehearsal, but I I really try to figure out like the text and kind of the message of the piece in a broad sense, thinking about like, oh, like, is this, starting from like, is this happy? Is this sad? Or is this reflective? What is like, is there like kind of plot or kind of like a story or a world or something that's kind of being built with the music, both in text and in its musical elements, that I want the audience to feel or to acknowledge or be involved with. And yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of thinking through my process now. Yeah, starting with like the message that I really want to pull from the music, and how I can communicate that with the choir first. At least not even imposing my vision on it, but sharing like, hey, like, this is what I've taken from this music. This is like what the text means. This is what the poet was trying to talk about. This is what the composer or the arranger is trying to pull from that text. What do we want to pull from this as a piece of art that is like all of this stuff together, so that the audience can understand and maybe reflect or feel or be engaged with. And when it comes to gesture and just conducting, it's interesting. I feel like I do a lot of like, I sit and look in the mirror when I conduct a lot. I think a lot of conductors do this. And I just try to think of like, okay, like, how do I look? Like, am I, in even just facial expression or like intensity of gesture or anything, like, am I conveying the truth of the music that I'm trying to conduct? And then technical things aside, I try to think of that in myself. And am I like, if I were to watch a conductor conduct this, what would I want to see on their face? Or how would I want to see them hold the music? I think about like holding music, or like sending it off, kind of like, yeah, I don't know. That feels kind of jumbled and not clear, but
no, it
yeah,
makes sense.
it's kind of a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to describe like art in general, I feel like. But no, you did a good job.
Thank goodness.
So, like, when I was in school, I studied flute, but I took a lot of the vocal music ed courses and things like that because I like to sing. And something I noticed was like how, especially as a flute player, I've been told a lot that playing the flute, or like how you would set up your body to play the flute, is very similar to singing. And I noticed, kind of being part of instrumental ensembles and being part of choirs, that there's a lot of things that are done in choirs that aren't done in instrumental ensembles, but it would really help if people did them in band and orchestra, like specifically with like awareness of your body or of your breathing, and like vowels and like all of that. It's so like baked into the pedagogy of choir conducting, but not so much. It's like for instrumentalists, it might be something that people practice individually in the practice room, but it's not kind of in the, like, it's not really focused on in ensembles and in rehearsals. And I wanted to bring that up because you are like fully choir professional conductor. So yeah, I think, yeah, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that in general as a choir conductor.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like interesting to hear. In a previous life, as in like middle school and like a little bit of high school, I also played in like concert band. Not that that's like at the same level as like university, obviously, but yeah, I think what's interesting about, I guess, like choral pedagogy is it's like we do sectional work a lot too. Like, sometimes we do, some groups more than others. But a lot of that sectional work, like working just in sections or even like small groups or whatever, is oftentimes like very much like learning the notes or getting something that's like difficult down, and not always technical things. And what I love about a choral rehearsal is that there's so much like transfer of knowledge. Like if I'm like working with a whole group and I'm like, okay, let's pick like whatever 8 bars, sopranos have something important. And I'm like, okay, let's modify this vowel, or let's think of this phrasing or something like that. That's like something that like every other person in the choir who is not a soprano can also directly apply, whether it's in that exact same part or in another part of the piece. And so it's like valuable to have those conversations in rehearsal, because it's like kind of, I don't know, killing like 2 birds with 1 stone in a way. Like I can say it once, but everyone else can also like transfer that. So when we get to it, they also are working on it as well. And so that's something interesting that I guess I never really thought about compared to like instrumental, like orchestral, concert, wind band stuff. And maybe that does happen and I just don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of like group learning that happens and that everyone can be involved with. And even if it's not something that is directly applied to you as like a singer singing a different part, it's just like interesting to think about, and it's something that you will hopefully bring to another piece of music where it does apply. So yeah
I always love the group warm-ups in choir.
Oh, they're so fun.
They are.
Yeah,
I guess that kind of also leads to another topic about choral pedagogy, because I feel like it also lends itself well to developing positive, like, okay, so this is just in my experience. I'm sure there are like, some toxic choir environments out there, but like I think in general, it lends itself well to like developing kind of positive mental health, even like just the act of singing. And like if you're singing to sound good as a singer, you need to be relaxed. You need to be in your body. You need to be present in your body. And that's like
absolutely.
That's a very helpful mental health thing as well. Do you also find that to be true in your experience? And are there ways that as a choir conductor that you kind of intentionally help facilitate that?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Like I think, I mean, you said it, like to sing well, you have to be generally relaxed, right?
Can't relate.
Hey, we'll get. I also am the same. I can't lie. Sometimes I'm like, ugh. But yeah, it's difficult to sing when you're stressed or uncomfortable, especially in a choir where like we want you just to sing easily. Yeah, it's so important to feel comfortable singing, right? Like every little like thing of stress or tension like will affect singing, and that includes like your comfortability with the people around you. And I think you mentioned in group warm-ups, obviously there is like technical things that we want to get through, or we want to create like good habits, or just like fixing something that is going to be an issue in the future or has been in the past. But also like building like comfortability singing with the people that you're around, right? With a youth choir that I work with, I often get them now. I mean, a lot of them now know each other very well, having been with this organization for many years. But then there's always new people every year, or there's always people that they don't know as well in the group. And I try to find a good balance of warm-ups that obviously tackle the technical things that I want to achieve with this group, but also just find them to be comfortable singing around anybody in the group, so that they can just sing as their best self, and not think, oh, I have to stand beside this person. I think they're really, really good, and I don't want to sound bad beside them, because that's not at all important. Sounding good or bad or whatever, at least in my opinion, right? And yeah, so I think warm-ups are a great time to try and get that. And even with a new group that is like just been formed or has a lot of new members, like that's a great way to get people to get to know each other during a warm-up, or at least just feel comfortable with their presence. Obviously it's not be all end all, like that's the only social time they get, but yeah, just getting them in random pairings or random groups just to meet somebody else and at least get a new name to the face, and then eventually that kind of sparks something else. I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who is like kind of experiencing a lot of either like physical tension or insecurities in the ensemble?
I would say, one, ditto. It happens to everybody. And what I will say is that everybody feels that way. Even like the most confident singers. I mean, maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but at one point in any given rehearsal, I'm sure everybody has felt that way. They felt some level of like insecurity, whether it's like, oh, like I'm sitting beside someone who I know is really successful or talented in whatever way that means, or, oh, I feel very inexperienced and I don't know what I'm doing. I think one is that everyone's going to feel that way, and that's okay. And that's not always going to just change immediately. But I think the best part of choir is that, or just even just group music making, is that you get to be on that journey together with somebody. Mm-hmm. And things that you may not know, someone else can like teach you, or you can learn from or with somebody else. But also know that like what you have, like your experiences and your talents are also going to teach or inform somebody else, and that everyone's going to be learning from each other. And that's kind of what it's all about. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's great. Yeah. How do you choose repertoire?
Ooh. So there's a lot of factors that go into choosing repertoire. I think one is like knowing the group. So like I'm not picking like a double choir piece from my 16 voice youth choir where we have 4 changed voices. Like that's not going to work. So knowing the group, what kind of repertoire they've done in the past. What helps is, I know, again, with most of the choirs that I work with, we'll do some sort of like vocal assessment that everyone thinks is like an audition, and it never is. It's just to get to know your voice. And we take notes on like their range, kind of maybe tone, timbre, ideally what their voice part is or could be, and also some like musicianship skills, which I think people are the most scared about, which I totally get because I'm also scared of it. Doing like sight singing, sing backs, rhythm clap back stuff to get an understanding of the level of the group, and what is like an actual feasible goal for them to achieve throughout the year. I think that's like kind of the basis of like kind of picking repertoire, at least starting. And then next is, I guess, depending on like the organization or the kind of group, is like, are there any themes that your group or organization is exploring that year? I know a classic is like holiday/winter concerts. And I personally don't pick like Christmas music, or like inherently holiday kind of songs. And that can be fun. And I think there's ways to do that in a way that's like, inclusive, and also just fun. But I'll pick songs and I'm like, this is a cool kind of wintry vibe. Mm-hmm. Or like maybe like this year my youth choir, we sang Terre Neuve by Marie-Claire Saint-Don, White Winter Hymnal. And I know, what a fun one, right? And then I'm blanking on the third one, which is embarrassing because we just sang it.
It's okay. We had a concert last week, and if you were to ask me what we played, I will not be able to tell you.
Yeah. It just like leaves my brain when I don't have to think.
We hand back the music, like physically, but also spiritually. We hand it back.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, wait. I'm literally having to pull up the program because I don't remember what the third song was. Yeah, when you have like 6 like holiday concerts, like you just, everything is all one. Oh, Ad Astra by Jacob Narvarid.
That sounds like that's a hard name to remember.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because it's like one of my favorite choirs, so like I should know it, but I just like forgot that we did it. But yeah, like none of those are like, I mean, I guess White Winter Hymnal is like winter is in the name, But none of them are like really inherently like
It's not Jingle
holiday.
Bells.
Yeah, it's not Jingle Bells. And also, Ad Astra and Terre-Neuve are also not even really holiday pieces. And maybe this is like very abstract and like not a good thing, but I kind of just wanted to capture like an essence of like winter. And when I think of like winter, I think one, cold, I think snow, sure. But both of those things are like very connected to like nature and earth. And I love going on a nice, crisp, like chilly walk in the winter, maybe late fall, early winter when there's not as much snow. And I kind of thought about what pieces kind of what I want to listen to on that walk. And that's when I thought of immediately Ad Astra, which is kind of a piece about like it's to the stars, kind of a piece about like inspiration and hope. And then Terre-Neuve is about the beautiful geology of Newfoundland, which is just really cool. And yeah, so that's kind of how I went about picking that repertoire, which again is not, none of them are really like holiday or winter. But I just wanted to capture that essence. And I think that makes it fun and interesting for the audience. So yeah.
I always appreciate it when, as much as, you know, as much as I love a good, I don't know, Jingle Bells or whatever, like the kind of the ones you hear every year, I always really appreciate it when the conductor does something a bit different. Because you know, it's like you're so accustomed to hearing one thing, and it's nice to, it's like a breath of fresh air. And also nice, like as a musician, to get to play. I know some people that's like, oh my God, this is my 7th year playing Sleigh Ride, and I've only played it 2 times, like in 2 ensembles, and so I'm still like, yeah, Sleigh Ride. But I'm sure in a few years I might start getting tired of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know it keeps all that stuff all fresh. Like it's still exciting to perform.
Yeah, and it's nice then you get to learn just like a wider range of songs. I really liked what you were talking about, kind of building, like having a picture in your head of what you wanted the concert or the program to evoke. I think that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I try to target these podcast episodes towards people who are also pursuing a career in music. And so I was wondering if you can describe a little bit more what a career might look like as a choir conductor for people who are thinking of getting into that world.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's interesting reflecting on that because I feel like such a like like I am early career. Like I feel like I just started doing this, which I guess in a way I have. And I haven't really lived a life where I'm not in school. I took, okay, I guess for context, so I took I started my master's in 2022, and did year 1, and quickly realized that I needed a break from school, not because of like anything at U of T or anything. I went right through from undergrad, and just really needed a break, to be honest. So I took a year off, and that was, I guess, the first time I had been not in school since starting school in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so I was just doing like I kept the same like choir conducting contracts that I had, and I also worked kind of full-time at Starbucks and other jobs, and so yeah, I feel like you're going to be freelancing. Basically you're a freelancer. At least for me, a lot of it has just been finding ways to, I don't know, fill my cup. You know what I mean? Like, I really wanted to prioritize opportunities that I felt very strongly about, and not just necessarily applying for every single conducting gig that I could find. And that isn't to say that the ones that I didn't apply to or I'm not doing are all ones that like, oh, I didn't want to do that. That looks like it's not good. That's not at all what I mean. But yeah, a lot, I guess in some ways it's different every day, which is like, I feel like everyone says that about everything, but so like you're preparing for, at least for me, like I conduct with how many groups? So 3, I guess right now 3 different kind of groups. one, I'm assistant conductor at U of T for tenor bass chorus. One, I'm a conductor of a youth choir called Encore with Young Voices Toronto out in kind of Babby Point, Bloor West Village. And I'm also an associate conductor with Modern Sound Collective. And so it just kind of, for one thing, it's some days I'm preparing for one rehearsal, sometimes I'm preparing for a different rehearsal, all with very different repertoire, varying levels of involvement from myself, where some rehearsals I'm only working two pieces for the entire rehearsal, whereas another rehearsal I'm running the entire thing. And so, yeah, it's kind of putting on like multiple different hats and being able to kind of compartmentalize all of the different music that you've got going on. I also sing in other groups as well. So, yeah. Sorry, I feel like I didn't really answer your question very well. Could you maybe rephrase it? Would that be okay?
Yeah. As you kind of go further into your career, what sort of opportunities are you looking for? And I guess what is your professional goals? And what are the first steps that you're taking to reach those goals?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I find that I've just been really drawn to working with groups of people where one, like, community is first. I think that like in every group that I sing with, and this isn't to say that again that other groups aren't like this. Just in my like the groups that I work with are really like we really want to value and we really do value community and the idea that we are making music and art together in a way that like involves even our audiences as part of that community as well. And also finding ways to kind of engage with choral music in a different way that isn't necessarily the traditional way, or just like only performing like Western classical music. I love being able to do pop songs in choir. I think that stuff is so important and so fun. And again, I work with a lot of like youth and young adults. And I think that's just such a fun way to like, I don't know, express yourself in a different way and learn different like technique. And just, I don't know, maybe even sing a song that you listen to on the radio. Like that's so fun. And it's so different to hear it in a different context. I also, again, with my background in like musical theater, and I also have like a little bit of dance training. Love the idea of figuring out how to put that all together in a choral setting. Something that I've done recently that I felt very strongly about was with my youth choir, and I threw this at them, and they took it like champs, and I'm so proud of them. We did an Into the Woods medley last year as part of our Spotlight YVT concert, which is kind of a more casual, less traditional choral concert, and the theme was all musical theater. And so we did mostly just kind of staging. I didn't give them too much crazy choreography, but like a fully staged with solos and small group stuff with an Into the Woods medley. It did like on a stage, and I loved it. It was so much fun, and I like to think they had a lot of fun. They looked like they were having fun. And they told me they had fun. But being able to do stuff like that is really important for me because, one, it is so baked into my training as a musician and as a performer. But also it shakes things up a little bit. It makes it more interesting. A lot of the singers, some of them do musical theater or are interested in musical theater. Some of them have never, ever done like a musical before, haven't really engaged in a lot of musical theater. So I think it's just a new way for them to experience another art form while still building their choral skills, which is what they're there for. So I find that like opportunities where I get to maybe introduce new art forms to the group, incorporate art forms that I really love, that I find joy in doing, and also something that the audience may not have seen or maybe not in its capacity. I find that those opportunities are things that I really am called to do.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to ask, because in your bio and just now you mentioned that you work with a lot of low voice choirs, and I was wondering if that's something that you went towards intentionally, or not. And are there differences with how you would work with a low voice choir versus like a soprano, alto, or one with all the full range?
Yeah. So I think my first experience conducting a low voice choir was in high school. And then since then, I hadn't done anything just low voice until I guess technically this year. So my first year of my master's, my TA position as an assistant conductor was with soprano alto chorus. So I got that experience. I'd never worked with strictly an SA choir. And then this year I'm working with TV chorus again. And then I also conduct Rocambolesco, which is a low voices ensemble with Modern Sound Collective. And I think there are some differences in I guess in on the kind of the vocal pedagogy side of things, which I think makes sense. And it's a lot of fun to kind of dig in and figure out what, for me as a tenor, who's studied with tenors, I feel like I feel most comfortable in that. I feel like I can, I am a tenor, so it's easier to kind of teach or feel more comfortable. So I really had to learn how to work with higher voices, it was a lot of fun. The repertoire is similar and different at the same time. It's always interesting performing a work that is set for mixed voices, but also has been arranged for all SA or all TB. Interesting to see how the voicings have changed, or if anything else has changed. And so kind of having a good idea of why or what of the music has changed, or understanding the repertoire and understanding tessitura is really important when writing and arranging for any voice. And so having that knowledge and being able to harness that in rehearsal and in performance is super important. And it definitely is. I'm trying to think, in my experience, are there that many differences? Maybe not necessarily, but definitely in the way the music is written and how I kind of work to interpret that and have to work with kind of teaching that.
Nice. Do you do any musical things outside of choral conducting that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I've recently, I guess in the past year, so I guess this is still choral, but started composing. It was actually just kind of a personal goal of mine. I always said that my one goal in my first year of my master's was to just compose one piece for choir, and it wasn't meant to go anywhere. It was just a challenge for me in a way. And I think it was, for me, I really wanted to understand each voice part, because again, as a tenor, or as a singer who sings in one part mostly all the time in choir, you kind of get used to the joke is oh, sopranos always get the melody, the altos always have one note, that kind of vibe. Haha, it's a joke, but I guess is it? But but yeah, trying to really understand each voice part and understand why a composer voiced something a certain way, or what kind of sound do we get when we remove those kinds of notions or traditional ways of writing for voice. And so that was kind of my challenge for myself in first year. I will admit I did not write a piece in first year. And it was just kind of how the cookie crumbled, I guess, in first year.
It's busy. It's a lot.
Yeah, I was
going on.
A lot, but yeah. But then I ended up writing something on my year off. And I don't know, I was this is cool. I like doing this. And I just kind of kept writing, and it became an outlet for myself, I guess, which I feel is what music is always. But yeah, and so I'm very happy I've had two pieces premiered by Concurramus singers, a group that I also sing with. One in Montreal at Podium and one at our last concert. And yeah, I just kind of committed myself to keep writing. It's something that I love to do, and it's not like I don't claim to be like big time composer on the come up, but it's a lot of fun and I enjoy it. So that's one thing that I've been really exploring and challenging myself to keep doing, because I just love doing it and it's a lot of fun. And another thing, which I guess is still kind of choral-y in a way, a group that I sing with now is an a cappella group called TBA. We're a club at U of T. A friend of mine is a music director, and one thing about me, which most my friends know, is Pitch Perfect is one of my favorite movies ever. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's so good. It's so funny. I love the music in it. It's just so good. But I never sang in an a cappella group at all, ever in my life. And I was talking to my friend Sarush, who's a music director, and he's like, well, I sing in this group and I'm the MD, like, you should join us. And I was like, oh, maybe. First year has kind of been busy and I've been, going through it. And I took a year off and then came back, and he was like, you're back in school. You should audition. Like, please audition. And I was like, all right, you got me. I'll audition. And I love it. It's so much fun. Yay. I don't get to perform a lot of like pop music in my practice aside from stuff in choir, or as a soloist at all. And I used to never think of myself as someone who could sing pop. I started singing doing musical theater, and then I have classical training. So like, I was like, oh, pop is scary. Like, I can't do all the runs. I don't have the like vibe for it. It's just not my thing. But this group has really just opened me up to singing pop music, and it's so much fun. Everyone in the group is so talented. And yeah, I'm living out my Pitch Perfect fantasy. Yay! So I can't really complain.
That's
but
so fun.
Yeah, so those are like, yeah, I love it. So yeah, I guess those are my two things, which I guess are still kind of choral, I admit, but it's just, yeah, I love them, and it's so much fun.
I've always wanted to join an a cappella group.
Oh, you should. It's so fun.
I feel the same way with musical theater. The only involvement I've had in musical theater was I had a job a couple of years ago working as a camp counselor at a musical theater camp. And
oh, fun.
Yeah, that was really fun. And I played in the pit band, like played flute for 2 things the year before last year. But like acting is so scary to me. Like, it's so scary. Like, I will cry if I'm like alone. I'll be like, if I were to like practice alone in my room, I will cry because it's just so it's so terrifying, even just being alone. And I don't think I have the voice type for it. But
hey, I don't know. I said the exact same thing about pop singing, and that's I think that like, is so untrue. No,
but
I think
you're
it's
a real
untrue.
singer,
you
though.
Can do it. You're also a singer. Hello.
I'm a fake singer.
No, don't say that. You are a real singer. Go for it. Like, there's so much musical theater in the community. Like, you should go for it. Like, even yeah, it's always going to be scary. Yeah. But you get used to it.
Yeah.
You should do it. I'm biased. I love musical theater, so but totally go for it.
Yeah, it's definitely on my it's on the bucket list. But yeah, I think if I'm going to do it, I want to really do it, and so I would need to be doing less other things in order to devote the time that it needs. You know what I mean?
That's yeah. Rehearsals are a lot. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
Yeah, but one day it will happen. But yeah, no, a cappella groups are like they're the shit. They're so good. It's great.
Yes. Yeah. It's so much fun. I love it. And this group is just so fun. Yeah, love them.
Mm-hmm. So I have 2 more questions. One is, what resource or piece of advice would you give to your younger self when you were beginning your journey?
That's a good one. I would say, do what makes you happy, which sounds so basic, and I think everyone says that, but I felt like there was so much pressure growing up to figure it out so early, and that you had to have an answer. And the truth is that like your life will change honestly by the minute. Honestly, anything could happen, but like so much can change. You will change throughout your undergrad, your master's degree, your time just in the workforce, and you will always find something new that you love. Something will fill your cup, and so you just have to do what fills your cup, and that is what will make everything worth it.
Mm-hmm. That's very well said. Yeah.
Thank you.
And do you have a music recommendation for the audience?
Ooh, okay. Yes, I do. I was listening to this song today, last night, the day before. I love it. It's called Trumpet Boy, by the band Laundry Day. They're a band based in New York City. First of all, they're hilarious. Their TikToks are really funny. But I love their music. And it's like a mix of like rock, pop rock, a little bit of like Brockhampton vibes, but like still like super, it's so fun. But Trumpet Boy, I don't know. I think the biggest part is there's like this little trumpet duet that happens in between the verses that I feel like it just fills me with so much emotion that the lyrics are already providing, but it just builds on it, even though it's like, it's just two trumpets kind of weaving in and out with each other's melodies. And I think it just has, I love the chorus. It's just so good. It hits, and it really hits. So I'm not really selling the song very well, but check it out. It's awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to it. I'm excited. I don't know how much this relates to the style and genre of that song, but I find that for like indie music or like indie folk music as well, when there's like a lot of layers of like strings and guitars and things like that, like when they add trumpet and brass to the cloud, it's so nice. It's gorgeous.
So warm.
Yes.
It's like such a warm, Again, maybe I'm biased. I played trombone, so maybe I'm like biased, but I think brass is awesome. Yeah. And it makes such a warm sound. I love it.
Me too. Yeah, I'm working on a song that I want to release in April, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm like, maybe I should add a trumpet part because there's going to be a lot of strings and flute, obviously, but like maybe I should add a trumpet.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we'll see. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was really fun. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Bedroom Studios podcast. Don't forget to add this podcast to your playlist and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify at Bedroom Studios Podcast. You can follow Tyrese on social media and check out his music. All links can be found in the episode description. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.